Welcome back. Now, House Oversight Chairman James Comer and the FBI Director Christopher Wray coming to an agreement that will allow the entire committee to view the alleged Biden bribery document. Meanwhile, former President Trump has been indicted on at least 7 federal charges, including illegal retention of classified documents, obstruction and conspiracy.
So let's dive into this and welcome to the show distinguished professor at Touro University, Thane Rosenbaum, and former federal prosecutor Doug Burns. Good morning to both of you.
Morning.
Doug, I'll start with you. According to Chairman Comer, the FBI informant was a trusted, highly credible person that they used for over 10 years. Now, I know a little bit about that. When you have someone that's been an informant for that long and they're considered highly credible, they usually are. That's not something that the FBI would document lightly. So if we have this very credible source, what happens next?
Well, it's all about the media, obviously. The American public is entitled to expect, first of all, on the investigative side, that it'll be investigated with the same zeal, not being sarcastic, as the Trump matters. That's all people want to see. As you point out, Michael, you have a highly credible source, 10-year track record. I've been in the same rodeos as you. I was an assistant U.S. attorney, worked with the Bureau all the time for 9 years. And so the point is this should be handled with the same zeal. Turning to the media side, when, as and if the mainstream media decides to cover this as a news story, like journalists, without an editorial agenda, we're going to be in a much better place as well. We need those two things to happen to start righting the ship that is veering so badly off course.
All right. Well, the FBI claims that they don't want to make the document publicly, but they do not want to risk revealing their source at the same time. Now, Thane, do you think that this source could be still working in government, if that's the case?
Sarah, I'm sure he is or she is. But, remember, we're going into a presidential election here. And there's surely no protection of Donald Trump because of this presidential election. In fact, they geared up with several different indictments. I always assumed that they would only have one indictment, the one in New York, that they couldn't possibly, the optics of having multiple criminal cases where the man running for president is hopping from courtroom to courtroom. This just shows you that when it comes to the presidency, they're saying when it comes to Donald Trump, all bets are off. And any potential crime we have to investigate. The problem is, the optics that this is simply not true of Joe Biden, who also has declared his candidacy to run for re-election. And here we have great sensitivity to the sources, whistleblowers. I understand that they want to protect the confidentiality of sources, and they don't want to reveal even investigations that may have gone nowhere. But we do have a presidential election, and they also have a special counsel that has been assigned to Joe Biden in connection with his document case. And let's remember, his document case is not protected by the Presidential Records Act. His document case is he was the vice president. He has no possessory interest in having documents in his garage. And yet we don't see any activity from that special counsel. And we see already now this case is moving along against Donald Trump. So look, the FBI has a legitimate argument in the regular world. But when it comes to dealing with a presidential election, the public has a right to know.
Doug, I want to pivot for a second. I also want to just expound upon something that you mentioned about the press. I've always felt that we had a great Constitution in that it provided checks and balances, but the ultimate check and balance was really a free press. And that's one of the things that's lacking right now. But again, to pivot back to former President Trump, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, as a reporter, I'm a reporter first and foremost, not a host, and I can tell you that I'm covering this story as well without any agenda, and I will continue to do that. So not all reporters are bad.
But that's here at Newsmax. But the mainstream media overall has been really just glancing over the Hunter Biden laptop and all of that. They were complicit when they said the Hunter Biden laptop was, a Russian hoax. But anyway, let me go now the indictment and how high a bar will it be for now as a prosecutor. How high is this bar to get a conviction? I know that the standard obviously is beyond a reasonable doubt, but this is something different because it's a case of first impression. So I think that bar is even higher. But what say you as a prosecutor?
Well, the bar is clearly higher for sort of an improper reason, which is, look at who the defendant is. I'm a purist. So to me, it doesn't make any difference when I look across the well of the courtroom whether the person, is the lowliest factory worker or the former president of the United States. I know that sounds crazy, but it makes absolutely no difference to me. I'm in a courtroom. There's a human being. That human being's been charged with a criminal offense, and we're going to see if we can prove it. So right away, the point I'm trying to make is you have kind of a built-in higher bar, very often higher reasonable doubt standard when it's this type of case. But criminal statutes have different levels of violations, and I think that's one of the key points here going to prosecutorial discretion. We saw the former director of the Bureau look us in the face on a case that I'm not going to get back in the weeds on and say, quote, no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case. So why don't we apply that language and that standard to what's going on now? And my point about different levels is, do we have documents that have been altered? No. Do we have documents that were destroyed? No. Do we have proof that these documents fell into the hands of foreign adversaries? No. So again, there are different levels of violation, and that often tracks into the way, Michael, that a jury looks at a case.
Well, there certainly is a long way to go on that, so we'll obviously be having a close eye on this, and we'll probably bring you back another time. Thane Rosenbaum and Doug Burns, thank you both for joining us today.